Hello everyone. Hello friends. Hello VOD watchers. Hello friend VOD watchers. Welcome to my stream. I am Salty and I'm going to be reading for you today. I did not get a nap before stream. And I may have a cough. That's okay. We deal with it. It's a bit like that. So my dad had, sort of gets, yesterday and today when he woke up from his morning nap because he's sick, he has like yellowish skin and slightly yellow eyes. I'm just like, well, that's your liver. You're going to have to go see a doctor. So I'm just like, he's going to go see a doctor tomorrow. I'm just like, I hope he's not sick because of that. I hope it's that because he's sick. If that makes any sense. Anyway, yeah. Really wish I'd have gotten that nap. I was cleaning. So, what happened yesterday was we read a chapter, and the chapter was them arriving at Cloud of Sparrows. So basically they made it, and Emily is now known as Lady Emily because she saved Lord Genji's life. And he's coming. Yes. That was a sneeze. Now I got a red nose. Great. Oh, big sniff. So anyway, and Genji gave Emily an apple orchard, which reminded her of the one she had as a kid. That was very nice, romantic and stuff. And Hide and Taro were trying to figure out how to think about Emily now that her status had increased from ugly outsider to lady who saved Genji's life, and they were like straining their samurai brains trying to figure out how they should think about Emily now. It's like, it must have been exhausting living in those times. Absolutely exhausting. So anyway, we also went back in time again to complete Stark's story, where he met Marianne and the kids, and basically tried to, because Marianne was working as a prostitute, and he tried to buy out Marianne's contract, and that went south very quickly, and he shot the proprietor and and the bartender. And after that, the story kind of have to go back to the start of the book when we saw more of Stark's story, which was told out of sequence. I'm not sure why this bit was filled in last. Seems like an odd choice from the author, but anyway. So yeah, we know Stark is definitely in Japan to kill Ethan Cruz, who's now the monk known as Jimbo. And Lady Heiko, she decided to come clean with Genji and tell him that she was in fact a ninja sent by the Shogun's head of the Shogun's secret police to assassinate Genji, and Genji's like, I know. It's like, I thought I knew that you knew that I knew that you knew. This was all a game we were playing. Genji's like, why are you telling me this? I thought, you know. So Genji was just like, well, then we're going to play another game. A game in which you were secretly working for me all along. And then he called in his bodyguards and told them that Heiko had secretly been working for Genji all along. And they're like, oh, thank you for your sacrifice, Lady Heiko. It's all a big facade. That's what I mean by it must have been exhausting living in those times. Like, you imagine a neurospicy person, they wouldn't have survived. It's like, I wouldn't have survived. I would have been like, no, I'm retiring to a village where I just have to fish all day and do manual labour, because that's the only way I'm living. And what else was there? I think that was about it, actually. Yeah, we went back in time and... Okay. So, yeah, Emily now has an apple orchard in Japan, as well as land to build a church. And yes, all the samurai were weeping because, you know, that's what they do in those days. So, chapter 14 we're up to. It is called Sekigahara, which is actually the name of a famous town or place in Japan where I think it was Ieyasu Tokugawa. Yeah, he won a great battle there and became shogun in real life in Japan, and that started off the 300 years of isolation. So yeah, and Tokugawa basically codified everything in Japan. Like, samurai were now samurai. They had to follow the Bushido, the rules and everything. Everything was codified then. The caste system was really cemented in. So, yeah. Not great, to be honest. So yeah, this is called Sekigahara. So the book's sort of like the fictional characters, sort of realistic setting, where real events happen, but not to these characters. Sort of, the characters weren't real. I don't know why, but tea always tastes different depending on, like, example. This is a tiny teapot. It's so small, but the tea that's brewed in this tastes different to tea that's brewed in like a cup or like a big pot. I don't know. I'm still pouring the hot water on the tea. It's really interesting how that happened. Weird. So, chapter 14, Sekigahara. As always, an excerpt from Suzumi no Kumo. When attacking, await the right moment. When waiting, be poised like a boulder on the edge of a 10,000-foot precipice. When the right moment manifests itself, vanish into the attack like a boulder plummeting into the void. Suzume no Kumo, 1344. We're going back to the traitor, Sohaku. Kudo's failure to return from the mountains did not surprise Sohaku. He had hoped his ally would eliminate Shigeru. He had hoped, but he had not expected it. What had surprised him was the presence of ninjas on Genji's side. With Kudo and Saiki, he had been one of the 3 main commanders of the domain's army. No ninjas followed the Sparrow and Arrow's banner, at least not to his knowledge. Could such a thing have been done so secretly that he had not learned of it? It seemed impossible. Kudo would have known and told him. Saiki would have known, and it would have shown on his face. Not even someone as wily as Lord Kiori could have fooled all 3 of them. Could he? Even if he had, the arrangement would have collapsed immediately upon his death. Pacts with ninjas were sealed with personal oaths. For reference, the ninja he's talking about is Lady Heiko, who managed to get through Sohaku's blockade by using her ninja skills. And this is why she had to come clean last chapter, because word was going to get back. Stark wasn't going to tell Genji, but word was going to get back to Genji eventually, so she decided to come clean, and Genji was just like, I knew this. Like, why are you telling me? Now I have to do something about it. There was no possibility Genji employed them on his own. He didn't even know where to find them. Sake and geishas were his realm, not spies and assassins. And what ninja would trust the word of such a frivolous weakling? Unless they too were swayed by fools' tales of his prophetic powers. No, ninjas were deeply immersed in the fundamental realities of life. They were not so easily misled. That left only one other highly distressing candidate, Kawakami. Ninjas were known to be among the operatives of the Shogun's secret police. Had the Sticky Eye planned all along to eliminate Sohaku and Kudo to weaken Genji? Perhaps he never intended to accept their switch in loyalties. Kudo could have died in a trap set by Kawakami there in the mountains. Yet that also seemed improbable. It wasn't a smart move. The smart move, if Kawakami intended to betray them, was to let Kudo kill Shigeru, have Sohaku help trap Genji, then kill all 3 at the same time. None of the alternatives made sense. Sohaku had to attain clarity, and soon, or his actions would not yield good results, and he had to act also soon. He had less than 80 men with him. His vassals in Akawaka were either dead or his vassals no longer. Until he knew what Kawakami's intentions were, he couldn't risk returning to Edo. Instead of protection, he might find arrest and interrogation. At least his family was safe. When he had become abbot, they had moved to his father-in-law's domain on Kyushu, the southernmost of the 4 main islands of Japan. They were, therefore, safely out of reach of Shigeru's vengeance. Are they, though? Does he know Shigeru? Like, Shigeru's a madman. Abandoning all hope and fear, he needed to find the calm at the very core of his being. then a governing solution would present itself on its own. There was only one place he could go: Mushindo Monastery. ... Kawakami grimly looked through his telescope at the fleet of British and French warships anchored in Edo Bay. Only recently they had bombarded the city. Now they sat there as if nothing had happened. No, it was far worse than that. They acted as though they were the wronged party. So it was the British and French that bombed Edo. Some southern lords had fired on outsider merchant ships in the Kuroshima Strait. In retaliation, the British and French had blasted the forts to rubble, then had proceeded to Edo to destroy the palaces of the offending lords. Their aim being as crude as their understanding, the outsiders had bombarded the Tsukiji district rather indiscriminately. Instead of repenting, they demanded payment of an indemnity to compensate them for the damage suffered by the merchant ships, formal apologies from the responsible lords, and a promise from the shogun that such an act would never be repeated. Disturbing as these events were, none were as mortifying as the reports he had received from the battlefront. When British Marines had come ashore, the courage of the samurai in the Kuroshima forts had evaporated. Faced with disciplined troops, massed rifles, and supporting artillery, they had fled in abject terror. 600 years ago, their ancestors had fearlessly met and defeated the Mongol hordes of Kublai Khan. Now they ran away without even putting up a fight. What a shameful day in the long history of their warrior nation. The shogun had been unable to decide on an appropriate response. Some hotheads advocated a declaration of war against the outsiders, all of them. Others, more frightened but not necessarily more reasonable, urged immediate acceptance of the outsiders' demands. Consensus was needed to keep the government from splintering. To achieve it, the shogun had taken an unprecedented step. Instead of making a decision and issuing proclamations, he had invited all the great lords, even those not allied with him, to come to Edo, meet in council, and work with him to forge a united answer. He was, in effect, offering to share power with his traditional enemies, the excluded clans who had been waiting since Sekigahara to wreak vengeance on the Tokugawas. The stage was set for a historic reconciliation. The possibility that it would actually occur sickened Kawakami. It would mean the end of his patiently devised plans to destroy the pretentious Okumichi clan. Worse, in such uncertain times, their reputation for prophetic vision might enable them to rise even higher than the undeserved heights to which they had already been elevated by popular opinion. Kawakami could almost picture it. Genji would attend the conference. He would make some offhand comment that the shogun would regard as serious advice. Action would be taken. In one of those coincidences that often seem to materialize around the lords of Akawaka, the result would be better than anyone could have imagined. The shogun, in his weakened state and clutching at every phantom hope, would then be moved to appoint Genji to his inner council of advisors. Kawakami didn't need to be a prophet to know his own future once that happened. The vengeful Genji would manufacture a pretext forcing the shogun to order Kawakami's ritual suicide. He had served the shogun faithfully for his entire life. Yet, if his master had to choose, of course he would choose Genji. If he believed what the shogun believed, Kawakami would do the same in his place. Secret police chiefs were easy to come by. Profits were another matter. What an atrocious turn of events. But wait, none of this had yet occurred, and it would not if Genji never reached Edo. Kawakami had one last chance. It would have to be unofficial this time, since Genji was no longer an outlaw, had never been one, thanks to the retrospective suspension of the alternate residency law. The country was in turmoil, however, and unexpected things happened at such times. Sahaku had sent word that he was temporarily retiring to Mushindo Monastery. This had irritated Kawakami. Now he saw it actually a fortunate development. On his way to Edo, Genji would pass between Mushindo and Yamanaka village. Kawakami intended to be in the village at the appropriate time, along with his personal vassals, some 600 in number, all armed with Napoleonic muskets and all well versed in their use. Yes, everything considered, the situation was not necessarily evolving in an entirely unsatisfactory direction. The only other worry, and it was a minor one, was his assistant, Mukai's, continuing mysterious absence. Kawakami had sent 3 messages to the dullard's tiny northern domain. None had returned. This was very strange indeed. Had some domestic emergency drawn him away and embroiled him so completely he was unable to reply? Kawakami remembered Mukai's wife, whom he had met on a number of unavoidable social occasions. She was nearly as characterless and homely as her husband. The same could be said of his 2 concubines. They seemed to exist only to fulfill the expectation that a lord of his rank would have at least 2 of them. No overwhelming passion was even remotely imaginable. Sooner or later, Mukai would show up with an entirely rational, entirely boring reason for his return home. Perhaps he had stupidly interpreted the shogun's permission to leave Edo as an order to do so. That was precisely the sort of decision he would make without Kawakami to instruct him. Hi, Lady Dragon Chef, how you doing? Welcome in. He dismissed his concern. More pressing matters demanded his attention. His spies were keeping watch on Akawaka. Heiko still shared Genji's bed. His opportunity would come soon enough. ... You see. Soon. We're back to Genji now. You're at work so quiet looking. Okay, no worries, Lady Dragon Chef. I hope you're having a nice day at work. One, I strongly advise against this journey, Psyche said. 2, if the journey is made, I strongly advise proceeding in force. No less than 1,000 men. 2,000 would be better. 3, I strongly advise travelling in company with at least one other lord, preferably one considered reliably neutral by both sides. This will reduce the likelihood of ambush along the way. Thank you for your sincere concern, Genji said. Under other circumstances, the danger would surely be as great as you fear. But I go to Edo at the Shogun's invitation. That alone ensures safe passage. 10 years ago, that would have been true, Shigeru said. Now the Shogun is no longer in firm control of the realm. Outsider warships blast his capital city with impunity. More and more often his own allied lords, as well as excluded lords, disregard his authority as they will. In many domains, the regimes of the great lords themselves are shaky. Saiki is right. You should not go. Genji turned to Hide. What do you think? Whether you go or not is a decision beyond my competence, Lord. If you do go, then I agree with Lord Saiki. You should go in force. 1,000 men will be sufficient if you take the best. Genji shook his head. If I march on Edo with 1,000 men, the Shogun will see it as an act of aggression, and rightly so. Inform him ahead of time, Saiki said. Say you will station them well outside the city, but within reach of the Kanto plain. Should the Shogun decide that they join with his forces against the outsiders, we can use Mushindo Monastery for that purpose. I can see this is all going to go down at Mushindo Monastery, isn't it? In any event, we will stop there on the way, Genji said. Emily wants to check on the status of the mission building. Do you know if construction was ever begun? No, my lord. Saiki fought back the irritation he felt. He was very grateful to Lady Emily for saving Genji's life, yet he found it intolerable that concern for her irrelevant missionary work should intrude into a discussion of such seriousness. Is it your intention to permit Lady Emily to accompany you to Edo? It is. Then I must add a fourth suggestion, Saiki said. 4. I strongly advise against her doing so. Quiet Crane Palace is being rebuilt, Genji said. Emily must oversee some aspects of the construction. She cannot if she isn't there. Saiki gritted his teeth. Is architecture one of her talents? No, but our architects need her advice about the design of the chapel. Chapel? I have ordered a small Christian church incorporated into the design. What? Saiki was aghast. Shigeru laughed, which surprised everyone. He so rarely did. Why be concerned, Saiki? 1,000 years ago, Buddhism was an outsider religion brought here by Chinese and Korean missionaries. Now it is as Japanese as we are. 1,000 years hence, the same will be said of Christianity these new outsiders bring. Saiki said, I did not realize you were of such an optimistic bent, my lord. I am learning from my nephew as we go along. You believe it is prudent to allow a woman to go on this potentially perilous expedition? Not a woman, Shigeru said. Several women. Lady Heiko and Hanako will come along too. Saiki refrained from exhibiting any further consternation. He only said, My fifth suggestion is that we approach this journey with the seriousness that it deserves. Heiko misses Edo, Genji said, and Hide should not be deprived of every opportunity to ensure himself of an heir. "The greatest danger is not past," Psyche said, not permitting himself to react to the frivolous nature of such reasoning. "It still lies ahead. And when it comes, we will meet it," Genji said. "Until then, let us not indulge ourselves in needless worry." Psyche bowed. How ironic if they had survived their recent perils only to die on a mundane trip to Edo. Such was the nature of karma, and it was to karma that he now bowed as much as his lord. "I hear and obey, my lord." "Thank you, Psyche. How many men shall I prepare?" "Oh, 20 or 30 should be enough. We won't be in Edo long." "Our scouts report that Sohaku is at Moshindo," Hide said. "If he is still coordinating his actions with Kawakami, the 1,000 men Lord Psyche suggests are far from excessive." "Moshindo will be clear well before Genji gets there," Shigeru said. "The nameless traitor will soon be doing all his coordinating with none other than hungry ghosts. ... Oh, Emily and Stark are talking. Here we go. "I can hardly believe my eyes," Emily said. "First an apple orchard, now this." She and Stark were in the midst of winter roses. They were the whitest white and the reddest red, and every shade of pink between them, from pale to deep. Stark said, "This garden deserves its fame." Emily gave him a questioning look. "Heiko told me another name for the castle is Rose Garden Keep." "Rose Garden Keep," Emily said. "Cloud of Sparrows. Such poetry to describe a fortress sadly dedicated to war." "War is poetry to the samurai," Stark said. "Why, Matthew, you seem to have acquired much understanding of them during your recent travels with Heiko." "We had some opportunity to talk," he said. Then he clenched his jaws shut. It was better not to say any more. Heiko said she'd tell Genji all about it. Maybe she would, maybe she wouldn't. It was her business, not his. They had been led to the rose garden by Hanako after Emily managed to convey her desire to be outdoors rather than in. The overabundance of chairs, tables, desks, and lamps in her room made her somewhat claustrophobic. And the parlour she shared with Stark was no better. Servants had brought out the incongruously plush sofa chairs upon which they sat. Emily reminded herself to tell Lord Genji about lawn furniture. He seemed eager to learn as much as he could about American civilization, as well as the American language. English. Just say English. "She seems like such a delicate creature," Emily said. "Privations of the wilderness must have caused her considerable discomfort." She did okay." Stark tried to shift the conversation elsewhere. "You and Lord Genji had more of an adventure than we did. If the rumors are true, you're an angel who performed miracles to save his life." Emily turned away and stared intently at a distant rosebush. She hoped he had not seen the colour that had risen into her face. "Oh, rumours. You know how those are. someone who knows nothing says something, and the nothing grows and grows. Hiko doesn't seem the type to gossip. She said Lord Shigeru told her he found you and Genji in a snow house you'd built. Did you really build a snow house? It was just a shelter of branches upon which the snow happened to fall. She said Lord Genji told her you kept him warm. Let me try that again. She said Lord Genji told her you kept him and yourself warm with knowledge you learned from Eskimos. I have never met an Eskimo in my life, Emily said, as adamantly as she could. I didn't think you had, Stark said. She must have misunderstood him, or I misunderstood her. So how'd you do it? Do what? Stay alive. You were lost for almost 2 days in a raging snowstorm. You did something to keep from freezing, didn't you? The shelter shielded us from the wind, Emily said. She could not lie, nor, God help her, could she tell the whole truth. That would be more embarrassing than she could bear. Though the walls around us were snow, they were nonetheless walls. They separated us sufficiently from the elements, such that it was noticeably warmer within than without. That's good to know, Stark said, if we're ever in a similar situation. I am sure we will not be, Emily said. She reached out to a brilliant red blossom. I wonder what this variety is. Genji said, American Beauty. Smooth. Genji, you smoothie. Just adjusting. If you recall, chat, I don't know if you were here for that chapter, but Emily saved Genji's life by building a lean-to, covering it with her shawl, and the snow fell on it, making it into a enclosure. But she stripped down to her pantaloons and stripped Genji down and wrapped them both in their clothes, so she kept him warm with skin-to-skin contact, which apparently she read in a book or something about Eskimos. So, and that's why she's super embarrassed about it. Genji said, American Beauty. Emily turned and saw him standing a short distance away. His obvious amusement told her he had been there long enough to hear at least some of her excruciating conversation with Stark. Seeing the distress in her face, he immediately affected a more serious mien. Hi Finn, how you doing? I hope you're staying cool in the summer. I think it's summer over there, isn't it? Yeah. He stepped up to the flower she had caressed, drew his short sword, and barely grazed the stem with its edge. The blossom separated from the bush and fell into his hand. Thorns dropped away as he touched them lightly with his weapon. He bowed and offered the tamed rose to Emily. Thank you, my lord. That's a strange name for a Japanese flower, Stark said. It is the name here only, Genji said. One of my ancestors had a... He was about to say vision. Remembering how much his use of the term had disturbed Emily, he said instead, dream. The following morning, he issued a proclamation declaring the most splendid roses blossoming within the castle would henceforth be known as American Beauty roses. Emily thought Genji's explanation sounded suspiciously like another visionary claim, but her curiosity was aroused. Of what did he dream? He never revealed its exact nature. That very day, he joined his army to that of the Takeda clan. He was with them when they attacked the palisades at Nagashino, perhaps the most famous cavalry charge in our nation's history. Don't buy flowers at a monastery because only you can prevent florist friars. Kind of interesting that the book is talking about monasteries and flowers as well. Maybe it's a big coincidence, but that is an interesting play on words. Florist friars. There's an American thing that's like only you can prevent forest fires, and that's a play on words like florist friars. Yeah, it's an American thing. I've never actually seen it. I've just been told about it. In Australia, we just don't prevent the forest fires. We do backburning, and that's about it, because fires are part of nature in Australia. It's actually necessary for many plants to reproduce. Where are we? Yes. Okay. Perhaps the most famous cavalry charge in our nation's history. He died in a firestorm loosed from the massed muzzles of the enemy muskets, along with thousands of other mounted warriors. No one has made such a charge since. His dream led him to that folly. Yes. Before the attack, he told his vassals to have no fear. The arrival of American beauty within the walls of Cloud of Sparrows signalled the ultimate triumph of our clan. His dream, he said, guaranteed it. Before she could stop herself, Emily said, "Why, that was quite mad." She wished she could bite her tongue off. I'm sorry, my lord, I misspoke." Genji laughed. He tried to force reality to fit what he had dreamed. Madmen often do. Unfortunately, this is not an uncommon failing in my family. Neither is a tendency to fatally misinterpret dreams. His successor let the proclamation stand as a cautionary reminder. "That was wise of him," Emily said, trying to make up for her clumsy gaffe with compensatory praise. "And it would have been wiser if he had remembered it himself," Genji said. His own dreams convinced him to side against the Tokugawas at Sekigahara. He was killed, our clan nearly destroyed, and here we are today on the permanent list of the shogun's most untrustworthy adversaries. Emily felt both sympathy and disapproval. The clash between them put an unfamiliar scowl on her face. She said, "These are surely signs that such dreams should be seen for what they are. Dreams only. It is written in the Holy Bible, prophesies and serveth not for them that believe not, but for them which believe." Perhaps. It doesn't trouble me very much, one way or the other. I dream much less frequently than my predecessors. While his tongue, lips, lungs, and larynx formed these words, the world around him vanished, and Genji found himself elsewhere. ... A gentle wind cools his somewhat feverish skin. White blossoms fill the branches above and imbue the air with their sweetness. Apple Valley is in bloom. It must be spring. The enveloping beauty tightens his chest and brings tears to his eyes. He is happy, and yet, what conflicting emotions are these he feels? He isn't sure. The future Genji may know. The visionary one does not. Just as it was in his first experience, he inhabits the person he is yet to be. The hands holding the reins, resting on the pommel, are not so different from the hands that gave the rose to Emily. If this day is distant from the present one, it is not so distant that he has entered old age. Genji lets his horse go where it will. He has no destination. He waits. For what? Impatience drives him from his saddle. He paces back and forth. Looking up, he sees the branch upon which Emily sat when he gave her this valley. Heiko made her confession to him on the same day. He thinks of the two women and smiles. The beautiful geisha who knows more than she should. The naive outsider who knows only what she wants to know. He thinks of them and is reminded once more of the cruel limitations of prophetic vision. He senses the vibration in the ground before he hears the hoofs of the galloping horse. When he looks towards the rise at the mouth of the valley, he sees a steep, roofed building with a bell tower. Atop the tower is a white Christian cross. Hide rides past Emily's church at top speed. Without waiting for him to arrive and deliver the message, Genji leaps back onto his horse and spurs it towards Cloud of Sparrows. Servants are gathered in the courtyard. They bow as he arrives. He rushes into the castle. From the far end of the corridor, he hears the cries of a newborn infant coming to him from his own bedroom. His urgent steps quickly take him there. A man holds the baby for him to see. It is the mother he is concerned about, not the child. He gives it only a cursory glance. Before he can enter the inner room, Dr. Ozawa steps out and closes the door behind him. How is she? The birth was a very difficult one, Dr. Ozawa says. His face is grim. Is she out of danger? Genji says. Dr. Ozawa shakes his head. His bow is deep. I am sorry, my lord. A single unalloyed emotion surges through him at the doctor's words. Grief. He drops to his knees. Dr. Ozawa kneels with him. You are a father, Lord Genji. Genji is too broken by his sorrow to resist as the baby is placed in his arms. Something sparkles at its throat. Though tears obscure the vision, he recognizes it immediately. He has seen it twice before. Once in another vision, once in a mound of snow. A small silver locket marked with a cross, upon which is emblazoned a single stylized flower, perhaps a lily. ... Ah, that's Emily's locket. Dr. Ozawa said sternly, I warned you against overexertion, my lord. Genji rested on a bed in a room overlooking the rose garden. He didn't remember coming here. He did remember falling unconscious. I was only talking. Then you were talking too much. Please talk less. Genji sat up. I'm fine. People who are fine do not collapse without reason. Vision, Genji said. Ah. Dr. Ozawa faced the door. Hanako. The door slid open and Hanako looked in. Yes, doctor. She smiled at Genji through her worried expression and bowed to him. Bring tea, Dr. Ozawa said. Sake would be better, Genji said. Tea, Dr. Ozawa said again. Yes, doctor, Hanako said and withdrew. Shall I tell you? If you wish, Dr. Ozawa said. He had been the clan doctor for nearly 40 years. Kiori and Shigeru were his patients before Genji. He knew all about the visions. I doubt I can provide any useful insights. I never have so far. There's always a first time. Not necessarily. Sometimes there is not even a first time. Genji described what he had seen in as much detail as he could. He waited for Dr. Ozawa to speak, but he only sat quietly and drank his tea. This one is like the first, Genji said. It confuses more than enlightens. Who is the child's mother? It must be the Lady Shizuka of my first vision. The child wears the mother's locket. But in the first, Lady Shizuka is alive and I am dying, and in this one the reverse seems true. An irresolvable contradiction. So it seems. Do you believe I have seen what must be or what could be? Everything your grandfather shared with me has come to pass. Dr. Ozawa sipped his tea. However, I know he did not share everything. Nothing your uncle has said has materialized, so far. Yours is yet another, entirely different situation. You have had 2 visions, and will only have one more, and that will be the end of it for you. That is a more fortunate circumstance, I think, than either Kiori's or Shigeru's. You have neither too much clarity nor too little, rather just enough to increase your alertness. You didn't answer my question. How can I? Dr. Ozawa said. What do I know of the future? I am a mere physician, not a prophet. Such philosophical neutrality is not helpful, Genji said. I need counsel. I hesitate to offer what could only be opinion and not considered advice, Dr. Ozawa said. I would welcome it nonetheless. Then you should speak to a woman. Yes, Genji said, but which one? That should be obvious. Oh? Please tell me. Dr. Ozawa bowed. I meant it should be obvious to you, my lord. You are the one with the vision. ... Heiko listened without interrupting. When he finished, she remained silent. Genji understood. It must not be easy for her to learn that he would father a child with another woman. But with whom could he share his experience? He trusted no one else as much. One thing alone is clear to me, he said. Before any of this can come to pass, Shizuka must meet Emily, because the locket she wears, the one she gives to our child, is the one that is presently Emily's. Beyond that, I'm at a complete loss." She said, "Did you not once tell me of an outsider master and his blade? I cannot recall his name." "Are you thinking of the story of Damocles and the suspended sword?" "No, that is not it." Eiko thought. "His name was not entirely unlike that of Zen Master Hakuin Zenji. Hako? Hoku? Ko? Okako? Okako's blade? Something like that." "Occam's razor?" "Yes, that's it." "What of it?" "When you say one thing is clear to you, you are not using Occam's razor." "Oh? Have you mastered outsider thinking?" "There is little to master here. As I recall, Occam's razor says, when faced with multiple possibilities, the one requiring the simplest explanation is most likely to be correct. You have not chosen the simplest explanation." "I have limited myself to only that part of the vision that can be explained. How have I not applied Occam's razor?" "You are assuming Shizuka, whom you have yet to meet, will be the mother. That the identifying locket will somehow comes to her from Emily, and then goes to the child. There is a simpler explanation." "I fail to see it." Eiko said, "The child gets the locket directly from Emily." "Why would Emily give her locket to my child?" "Because it is her child too," Eiko said. Genji was shocked. "That is utterly preposterous, also insulting, and neither is it in conformity with the rule of simplicity. For her to be the mother of my child, we must first sleep together. I do not see a simple, direct path to that. Do you?" "Love tends to simplify the most complex and difficult of situations," Eiko said. "I am not in love with Emily, and she is certainly not in love with me." "Perhaps not yet, my lord." "Not ever," Genji said. "And how do you feel about her?" "I have no feelings for her, not the kind of which you speak." "I have seen you laughing with her," Eiko said, "and she smiles often in your company." "We nearly died together," Genji said, "and because of that we have a bond we did not have before, yes. A bond of friendship, not a bond of love." "Do you still find her repulsive and ungainly?" "Not repulsive, but only because I have grown accustomed to her appearance. Ungainly is also a rather harsh term." Genji recalled the way she lay in the snow, waving her arms and legs to create her snow angel. He pictured her clambering into the apple tree without the least self-consciousness. I suppose in her own outsider way, she has a certain innocent grace. "You speak of her as though she is someone for whom you have affection." "I will admit to liking her. It is a long way from liking to loving." "A month ago it took all your discipline for you to even glance in her direction. Now you like her. Love does not seem so inconceivable." "There is a critical difference between the two. Sexual attraction." "Which she does not generate?" "Please." "Of course, there is an even simpler explanation," Eiko said. "I hope it is more pleasant as well," Genji said. That is for you to say, my lord, not I. Heiko looked down at her hands clenched in her lap. New conditions would not have to arise leading you and Emily to bed, if you have already been there. Heiko, I have not bedded Emily. Are you certain? I would not lie to you. I know you would not. Then what are you saying? You were delirious when Shigeru found you. Unconscious. I had been delirious earlier. You and Emily were inside a snow-covered lean-to for a day and a night before you were discovered. She looked up, and her eyes locked with his. My lord, do you remember precisely how you stayed warm? ... Interesting conversation coming up. New scene. I am so happy to see you well, Emily said. We were all very worried. Please sit down. Thank you. Genji's inner self was in turmoil. It was only fitting that his outer self be in equal agony, a condition immediately provided by the misshapen outsider chair. His spine shifted out of alignment as soon as he sat, and his organs pressed unnaturally against each other, restricting the flow of ki and causing the accumulation of dangerous toxins. Excellent. Now he was thoroughly ill at ease. Lady Heiko said you wished to speak with me. Did she tell you why? Only that it was a matter of some delicacy. Emily looked at him. It might have been better for me to come to your rooms instead of you to mine. Perhaps you haven't completely recovered from your recent episode. There is nothing to worry about, Genji said. It was only fatigue catching up with me. I am more rested now. I was about to have tea. Emily went to a table with an outsider tea service on it. Would you care to join me? Heiko was kind enough to acquire some of the English variety. Thank you. Any delay was welcome. How was he to raise the question? He couldn't imagine a less manly, more humiliating act than asking a woman with whom he was not on the closest terms, and an outsider on top of it, whether he had bedded her because he couldn't remember if he had or not. Emily lifted a small decanter and poured a portion of thick white fluid into their cups. Then she added black tea. Its perfumed scent failed to conceal the fermented nature of the leaves used for brewing. Finally, she added sugar and stirred. Her first sip brought a smile to her face. It has been so long I had forgotten how delicious it is. Genji tried the strange mixture. As soon as it touched his taste buds, he gagged. Politeness prevented him from doing what instinct demanded, which was to instantly spit out the foul concoction. The cloying sweetness, the strong bergamot odour, and the wholly unexpected presence of greasy animal fat combined to create an intolerable assault on his senses. Too late, he realized what the white fluid was: thickened milk from the grotesque udders of cows. Is something wrong, my lord? The potent liquid in his mouth prevented him from responding. He steeled himself and swallowed. Ah, I am surprised merely at the taste. Our tea is not so strongly flavoured. Yes, the difference is significant. It's a wonder they are made from the same leaf. They spoke of differences and similarities long enough to allow Genji to set aside his cup without drawing attention to the fact that he did not drink from it a second time. Still unable to directly approach the actual subject of his visit, Genji sought to reach it in a roundabout manner. He said, "When we were together in the snow, I noticed something." Emily's cheeks became immediately inflamed. She lowered her gaze to her teacup. "Lord Genji, I will be in your debt to a very great extent if you will never mention that matter again." "I understand your discomfort, Emily. Truly I do." "Forgive me for expressing doubt, sir." She briefly raised her dizzying, bizarre blue eyes to cast a hurt and disapproving look his way. "You seem to have found a particular amusement in frequent and public allusions to it." "For which I sincerely apologize." Genji bowed. Now that he found himself in an analogous position of profound embarrassment, he knew her feelings could not be very different from his. "I did not previously treat your concern with the appropriate regard." "If your apology is heartfelt and true, then you will drop this matter now and forever." "I promise to do so afterward. Regrettably, we must speak of it one last time." "Then you will understand if I do not take your apology seriously." Genji knew of only one way to demonstrate his sincerity. It was something he did daily at the shrine of his ancestors. He never performed the act before living persons outside the shogun's palace, and he never imagined he would for an outsider. He went to his knees and bowed all the way to the floor. "I ask only because I must." Emily knew pride was everything to samurai. The sight of the lord of the domain humbling himself to her brought tears of shame to her eyes. Who was the conceited one here? Whose was the arrogance, the vanity? It was written in the book of Job, "Wilt thou condemn me that thou mayest be righteous?" She too fell to her knees and took his hands in hers. "Forgive my self-serving vanity. Please ask what you must." Genji was too shocked to speak right away. He was utterly unaccustomed to having his person seized in such a way. Indeed, had any of his bodyguards been present in the room, Emily's head would now be rolling on the floor. To touch a great lord without his permission was a capital offence. "The wrong is mine," Genji said. "Do not blame yourself." "I do. I must," Emily said. "What a dangerous and insidious thing is pride." It was several minutes before they were back in their chairs, and she was sufficiently restored to allow the discussion to continue. "It might have been nothing, only delirious imagining," Genji said. "In the snow, I saw a piece of jewellery at your throat." Emily reached into the neck of her blouse. A thin silver chain came up with her hand, and on the chain was the silver locket with the cross and the stylized flower. "Was it this?" "Yes," Genji said. "What is on the cross?" "A lily in the form known as the fleur de lis. The kings of France took it as their royal symbol. My mother's family was originally of French extraction. The fleur de lis was a reminder of this." She clicked it open and leaned forward to show him what was within. a miniature portrait of a young woman who closely resembled Emily. This was my mother's mother at 17 years of age. An age you will soon attain. That's right. How do you know? I asked you when you made the snow angel. Of course. Remembering, she smiled. You did not think much of my angel. A failure of perception rather than your art. Emily sat back and sighed in relief. Well, that was not so bad. I was expecting. I don't know what I was expecting, but I thought the line of questioning would be far worse. There was no way to avoid asking the more difficult question. I'm not finished, Genji said. Go on then, I'm ready. She looked as ready as he felt, which was not ready at all. But there was nothing else to do, so he went on. After I was injured, my memory is fragmented and hazy. I remember lying with you, naked. Were we? Yes, we were. Did we do more than lie together? What do you mean? Did we make love? Emily turned away, shocked that he could even mention such a thing. Though it seemed impossible, more colour rose into her cheeks. It is very important that I know, Genji said. She could neither face him nor say a single word. Finally, after her silence extended from moments into minutes, Genji stood. I will forget this conversation and the events leading to it. He slid the door open and stepped into the corridor. He was closing the door when she spoke. We shared our warmth, Emily said, to save our lives. Nothing more. We did not. To speak so explicitly was agonizing. We did not make love. Genji bowed deeply. I am very grateful for your candor. He walked away without the relief he had hoped to receive. Emily was not already pregnant, and Lady Shizuka remained to be met. These were good things, but his hopes were rapidly diminishing. The other possibility Heiko had mentioned, that he would fall in love with Emily, was no longer as unimaginable as it had seemed. During his visit, as he had spoken of their time in the snow, and recalled what he had seen and sensed, and had watched the innocent emotions so guilelessly displayed on her face, something truly unexpected occurred. He had found himself growing excited. ... Sip. Okay, we're going back to Suhaku, the traitor general. I continue to believe Lord Genji and Lord Shigeru will lead our clan to its destruction, Suhaku said. Therefore, I do not regret my decision. He had led 79 samurai out of the mountains and back to Mishindo Monastery. The 60 who remained sat assembled before him in the meditation hall. The others had disappeared before the meeting. Suhaku did not doubt more would soon follow them. Events had conspired against him. He had failed to kill the 2 remaining Okamichi heirs. By now, Kudo's head was rotting on the end of a spear outside Cloud of Sparrows, and the shogun's proclamation suspending the alternate residency law had made Sahaku, not Genji, the outlaw. Kawakami insisted their plans could still succeed. He could afford to say so. No, he could afford to say so. He was the head of the secret police and the great lord of Hino. He had place and knew it. Sahaku had none. Nothing was left for him but a final bold stroke. It didn't matter that it would change nothing whether the result was triumph or defeat. The only important consideration was how he would die and how he would be remembered by his family and foes. He had once commanded the finest cavalry in all the domains of Japan. He preferred attack to a more passive ritual suicide. According to his scouts, Genji had left Akawaka for Edo, accompanied by less than 30 samurai. Sahaku had twice as many men now. He would not have them for long. He doubted he would have 10 when he rode from the temple. Sahaku said, "Tomorrow morning I will meet Lord Genji in battle. You are released from your oaths of loyalty to me. I urge you to either seek a reconciliation with him or service with another lord." "Hollow words," an angry man in the 4th rank said. "Released from our oaths or not, we are still bound by our actions. Reconciliation is impossible. And what lord will accept traitors like us?" "Be silent," another man said to him. "You knew the risks. Accept your fate like a man." "Accept yours," the angry man said. His sword flashed suddenly. Blood spurted from the severed arteries of the man who had admonished him. The attacker fought his way through 3 ranks separating him from Sahaku. Sahaku neither stood nor drew his sword. The man was almost upon him when another samurai cut him down from the back. "Forgive him, Reverend Abbot. His family did not succeed in escaping from Akawaka in time." "There is nothing to forgive," Sahaku said. "Every man must make his own decision. I will leave my swords here and go to the meditation hut for 1 hour. Then I will return. If any among you wish to accompany me into battle, wait here." No one took him up on his invitation to come and kill him. When he returned to the main hall an hour later, he found the 2 corpses gone. Everyone else remained in their places. He would have 58 men against Genji's 30. Sahaku bowed deeply to his loyal retainers. "I have no words to express my gratitude to you," he said. The brave and the doomed returned his bow. "It is we who are grateful," a man in the 1st rank said. "We could not follow a finer lord." ... "The Reverend Abbot declines to coordinate his attack with yours," the messenger said. "He will sally forth from the monastery at dawn." Kawakami understood. Sahaku knew death was his fate no matter what happened to Genji, so he chose to die sword in hand. He was no longer concerned about the success or failure of the campaign itself. That had become irrelevant. "Extend my thanks to the Reverend Abbot for informing me of his actions. Tell him I will pray to the gods for his success." "Lord." Kawakami was with his 600 men at Yamanaka village. Of these, only 100 were primarily swordsmen. They were there to protect the others, a regiment of musketeers, against close quarters assault. He did not expect it to come to that. Even though Suhaku outnumbered Genji 2-1, that is, if he retained all his men, which Kawakami doubted, he would fail in his attack. He would fail because his sole concern was to display his courage, not to win. Die-hard cavalryman that he was, he would probably intercept Genji at Mie Pass. The slopes were ideal for a downhill charge from both sides. If he did that against a force such as Kawakami's, he and all his men would be cut down long before they could draw a single drop of blood with their swords. But the Okamichi clansmen were not musketeers. Like Suhaku, they were living relics of another era. They would meet the charge with one of their own, and the two sides would clash with katana and wakizashi, with yumi, yari, naginata, and tanto, with the weapons and wild courage of their ancient ancestors. They were doomed, all of them. Suhaku would die in the Mie Pass. Genji and Shigeru would die at Mushindo, where they would go after defeating Suhaku. Kawakami, of course, would be waiting for them there. He would take the heads of the last Okamichi lords to the shrine of his ancestors in Hino domain. After 260 years, the Battle of Sekigahara was about to end. In several lengthy sessions, Genji listened to Shigeru speak of his visions. His uncle described occurrences so strange they could occur only in a distant future, if at all. Devices that allowed communication over great distances, flying craft, unbreathable air, undrinkable water. The now fecund inland sea full of dying fish, its coasts inhabited by deformed wretches. Populations so dense, people crushed up against each other within the carriages, miles long, and thought nothing of it. Large numbers of outsiders everywhere, not just in the restricted zones around Edo and Nagasaki. Wars so brutal and so vast, whole cities disappeared in flames in a single night. Genji decided to have Shigeru's words recorded in the family annals and left for posterity. They did no good now. His hope that his own visions would be clarified by them was completely frustrated, except in a single unwelcomed respect. In Genji's vision of his death, he saw something Shigeru saw in every one of his own. There were no men with topknots, swords, or kimonos. Samurai were extinct. Inconceivable though it seemed, this at least would occur in Genji's lifetime. He looked at the men riding with him. Was it really possible? In a few short years, would they all be swept away in the outsider's total conquest of Japan, as Shigeru believed? Hide and Taro rode up alongside. Hide said, "My lord, we are approaching the Mie Pass." "Do you really think we are in danger here?" Taro said, "Yes, lord. Abbot Suhaku was my commander for 5 years. This is precisely the kind of terrain he favors. He can attack at high speed from both sides of the valley." "Very well," Genji said. "Tell Heiko and Hanako to drop back with Emily and Matthew." Yes, Lord, Hide said. How many men shall I assign to guard them? None. If Sahaku awaits, he will not bother them. My uncle and I are his only interest. Lord. Genji turned to Psyche. You didn't add your views. Your instructions were quite appropriate, my lord, and complete. There was nothing to add. Psyche was at peace. Whatever would happen, would happen. He did not know whether he would live or die. He knew he would act as a loyal retainer should. This was enough. Heiko was not happy with the instructions she received. She obeyed them, nevertheless. She had already promised to do so as a condition of her pardon. Until I say otherwise, you are a geisha only. You will not use your other skills against either Sohaku or Kawakami. Agreed? I can agree about Sohaku, but not about the sticky eye. He must be eliminated at the earliest possible moment. I did not ask for your opinion. Do you agree or do you not? His expression was without the slightest sign of humour. Yes, my lord, I agree. So here she was, dressed in a fancy, cumbersome travelling kimono of great beauty and little combat utility, in the saddle of a mare as tame as the one bearing Emily, and without weapons of any kind apart from her bare hands. Lady Heiko, Hanako said. Yes. If you should need them, there are throwing daggers in my right saddlebag and a short sword in my left. Lord Genji has forbidden me to have them. You do not have them, my lady. I do. Heiko bowed in gratitude. Let us hope they are not needed. Emily said to Stark, What if the man you seek is not at the monastery? Then I'll keep looking. And if he died in the epidemic? He didn't. Through Heiko, he had spoken with Taro about the outsider monk at Mushindo. The Japanese called him Jimbo, which was a shortened form of the man's name, Jimbo Hanan. Since the Japanese word for monk was bozu, it was also a pun. Whatever he called himself, his description fit Ethan Cruz exactly. What's a pun? Stark asked. A play on words, Heiko said. A certain sound conveying more than one meaning. Oh. Heiko and Stark looked at each other. They both laughed. Stark said, I guess you'll have to teach me English before you teach me Japanese. I don't know in what way he offended you, Emily said, but vengeance is a bitter fruit. Better by far to forgive. If ye forgive men their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. Amen, Stark said. ... Shigeru is not among them, the scout said. Of course not, Sahaku said. He is circling to ambush us when we set the ambush he expects us to set. He laughed, and his lieutenants laughed with him. Like all dead men, they were slightly giddy at finding themselves still upon the earth, and were completely without fear. One of them took his musket from its sheath, looked at it as if he had never seen it before, and dropped it on the ground. Other muskets fell until they had all been discarded. It says Shigeru turned to the 5 ranks of cavalrymen behind him, but I think that's supposed to mean Sahaku. I think that's a mistype there. It's Sahaku. Sahaku turned to the 5 ranks of cavalrymen behind him. Are you ready? A samurai stood in his stirrups, raised his lance, and yelled at the top of his voice, 10,000 years! Soon the cry was taken up by all. Men who had been laughing a moment earlier were now weeping and screaming out the same words in a single united voice. 10,000 years! 10,000 years! 10,000 years! Sahaku drew his sword and spurred his horse into a charge. ... Emily heard the loud exclamations from the road ahead. Banzai! 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 Has someone come to greet Lord Genji? She asked. Yes, Eiko said. What does Banzai mean? It is an ancient way of saying 10,000 years. The true meaning is more difficult to explain. I suppose you could say it is an expression of deepest sincerity, deepest commitment. The speaker is expressing his willingness to trade eternity for this single moment. Ah, then these are Lord Genji's allies, Emily said. No, Eiko said. They are his deadly foes. Stark drew both his guns and kicked his horse toward Genji. ... When they entered the pass, Sahaku's men were not met by a countercharge as they expected, but by a volley of musket fire from the trees on their left flank. A quarter of their number fell, many because their horses had been struck. Following their commander, the rest wheeled and attacked uphill toward the tree line. 2 more devastating volleys shattered their ranks. Only then did Genji's men become cavalrymen again, mounting their own charge out of the trees. Sahaku aimed himself straight at Genji. He cut through the first 2 men he met. The next, Masahiro, was a samurai he had trained, and trained well. Masahiro deflected the blade directed at him and rammed Sahaku's horse with his own. Sahaku felt his knee snap. With only one leg to use for leverage in the stirrups, he was hard-pressed to keep Masahiro from striking a lethal blow. This delay saved his life. Stark rode up next to Genji with a revolver in either hand and shot at the closest attackers. He fired 11 times, and 9 of Sahaku's men fell dead from their saddles. Masahiro's vigorous efforts kept Sahaku at a distance. That was the only reason the 12th bullet missed his heart. He saw Stark point the big revolver at him, and he saw the puff of smoke. Strangely, he heard nothing. An invisible blow of great weight struck at the left side of his chest. Then a feeling of weightlessness threatened to lift him skyward. He pushed himself forward onto his horse's neck, trying not to lose consciousness, fighting desperately to stay in the saddle. Reverend Abbot! Someone took hold of the reins. He wasn't awake enough to know who. Hold on! The horse galloped beneath him. How shameful it was to die of a gunshot wound without once having crossed swords with an Okamichi lord. ... When he heard the shouts of Sahaku's men, Shigeru knew he had made a mistake. There was no one waiting in ambush. He rode to the crest of the hill just in time to see the charge. By the time he arrived, it was over. Saiki said, "We lost but 6 men. Sahaku rode straight into our guns." It was a reenactment of Nagashino, Genji said. He used tactics that failed 300 years ago. It suited his purpose, Shigeru said. He dismounted and began looking among the enemy dead. He is not among the fallen, Saiki said. After Mr. Stark shot him, one of his men led him away. And you permitted it? I was not standing idly about, Saiki said. More pressing matters demanded my attention. Shigeru didn't bother to reply. He leapt back onto his horse and spurred it toward Mushindo Monastery. This way of fighting was very effective, my lord, Saiki said. You do not exhibit the happiness your words suggest, Genji said. I am an old man, Saiki said. My way is the old way. To be in a battle decided by guns brings me no joy. Even when you are on the winning side? At last, Saiki smiled. It is better to be on the winning side. That, at least, I can happily accept. It did not take long to dispose of the wounded among the enemy. In deference to Emily, Genji forbade decapitations and further ordered the bodies covered as well as they could be while she rode past. He thought Shigeru would find Sahaku quickly and be waiting when he reached Mushindo Monastery. His former cavalry commander appeared to have suffered a fatal wound from Stark's bullet. He could not have ridden far. But as Genji approached the walls of the monastery, his uncle was nowhere to be seen. Apparently, Sahaku had stayed alive long enough to require a more extended pursuit. Saiki said, My lord, please wait here until we are certain no trickery lies ahead. He rode ahead with Masahiro. Your marksmanship is most impressive, Genji said to Stark. There must be few in America who are your equal. A huge explosion prevented Stark from answering. The meditation hall disintegrated, throwing debris in every direction. Several in their party were struck in this way and instantly killed. A section of heavy beam broke the forelegs of Genji's horse and threw both animal and rider to the ground. At almost the very same moment, the surrounding woods erupted in massed musket fire. Heiko pulled Emily from the saddle and covered her with her own body. If she was to be the mother of Genji's heir, no injury must come to her. All around them, men and horses died. Their corpses absorbed the bullets that continued to rip through the air. Heiko could not raise her head to see what had happened to Genji and Stark. She silently pleaded with Amida Buddha to shield them with her radiant benevolence. As if in answer to her plea, voices in the woods called out, "Cease fire! Cease fire!" The shooting stopped. Another voice said, "Lord Genji, Lord Kawakami invites you to approach and discuss the terms of your surrender." Heiko saw Taro and Hide pulling Genji out from under his dead horse. He said something to Hide. The chief bodyguard laughed and bowed to his lord. Then he said, "Lord Genji invites Lord Kawakami to approach and discuss the terms of his surrender." Anticipating a resumption of the attack, every survivor in Genji's party pressed themselves even harder against the ground. But after a few moments of silence, there was a reply from the woods. "Lord Genji, you are surrounded by 600 men. There are women and outsiders with you. Lord Kawakami will guarantee their safety if you will meet with him. Hide said, An obvious trick. Genji said, Perhaps not. He has no need for tricks. We cannot escape. All he need do is tighten the ring of guns around us, and we will all be dead soon enough. My lord, Hide said, surely you're not accepting his invitation. I am. Obviously he wants to tell me something badly enough that he is willing to delay the pleasure of killing me. Lord, Taro said, once he has you, he will never release you. Oh, do you foresee that? That silenced all protest, as Genji knew it would. Any reference to prophecy always did. Always did. ... The satisfaction Kawakami felt demanded the utmost possible prolongation. He gestured at the variety of food and drink his adjutant had placed before Genji. Will you not partake in some refreshment, Lord Genji? Thank you for your hospitality, Lord Kawakami, but I will not. Kawakami bowed, signaling that he did not take offense at his guest's refusal. Genji said, I confess I fail to see the reason for this meeting. Our positions must appear definitive. My lieutenants are of the opinion that you intend to seize me. I have given my word to the contrary, Kawakami said, and I intend to keep it. I wished to see you before your death, which we both know is imminent and inevitable, so all will be clear between us in the end. You speak as though we were outsiders. Clarity and finality are what they seek, and therefore what they find. We are infinitely more subtle. Genji smiled. Never-ending ambiguity is the essence of our understanding. Therefore nothing will be clear between us, and there will never be an end, no matter who lives and dies here today. From your words, one would think there is a question as to who that will be. Genji bowed. I am being polite. There is no doubt whatsoever. Genji's a smartass. Kawakami didn't permit Genji's outrageous implication to anger him, or his persistent smile to irritate him the way it usually did. Instead, he returned the smile with one of his own, and continued in a friendly conversational manner. Of course, I do not conceive of permanence. I am neither child, idiot, nor outsider, that I would believe such foolishness. I mean only to clarify what is amenable to clarification, and end only that which can be ended. My principal motive, I am not adverse to admitting, is that in doing so, I will experience the pleasure of definitively exposing the falsity of your prophetic abilities. Those abilities themselves being of an ambiguous nature, I regret, for your sake, that aspect of your presumed triumph will also not materialize. Please save your sympathy for those who will benefit from it, while you are still able to give it. Kawakami gestured with a look. His adjutant came forward with a pine box wrapped in white silk, bowed and placed it between Genji and Kawakami. Permit me to honor you with this gift. Since I have none to give you in return, I must decline your gracious offer. Your acceptance itself will be a gift of more than equal value, Kawakami said. Genji knew what was in the box, not by virtue of any vision, but by the expression on Kawakami's face. With a bow, he took the box, untied the silk, and opened it. ... Shigeru rode at an unhurried pace toward Mushindo Monastery, his posture relaxed, his face expressing no concern. His senses, however, were fully alert. He knew he would find Sahaku, and he knew he would kill him without great difficulty. Kawakami was a more serious problem. Sahaku's attack, a bold single-front cavalry charge unsupported by infantry, clearly had not been part of any strategy Kawakami had devised. That meant another, more devious, much deadlier trap lay somewhere ahead. The sticky eye would never mount an open attack, no matter how great his numerical advantage in men and arms. Some form of ambush. Snipers, most likely, firing from a long, safe distance away. He entered the valley below the monastery, rode into a copse of trees, and disappeared. "Where is he?" the first sniper asked. "Keep your voice down," hissed the second. "Shigeru has ears like a witch." "But where did he go?" "Stay calm," said the third sniper. "Remember the reward we'll get for bringing back his head." "There, I saw something moving among the trees." "Where?" "There. Ah yes, I see him." The first sniper exhaled in relief. "Wait, it's just his horse." "What?" All three snipers leaned forward. "I don't see any horse." "There." "No, it's just a shadow." "I'm getting out of here," the first sniper said. "Gold doesn't do a dead man any good." "Stop, you fool. Wherever he is, he's too far away to do us any harm. He must cross that clearing. It'll be easy shooting." The second sniper got up and ran after the first. "If it's so easy, you do it." "Fools!" But the third sniper got up and ran after the second. "Something's happening, look." One of the trio of snipers in the second position pointed at the three men abandoning their post on the next hilltop. "Shut up," hissed the leader, "and get back down." The man did as he was told, but he began to look nervously in every direction instead of down toward the valley. ... 3 sniper posts, 2 now that one was abandoned. Shigeru continued to wait. Within minutes, the remaining snipers also fled. Shigeru frowned. Such lack of discipline was sickening to behold, even when it occurred among foes. He urged his horse forward once again. ... "Father?" It was a child's voice, his son's. "Nobuyoshi?" There was no answer. He looked to every side and saw nothing. For once, he would welcome a vision if it brought Nobuyoshi back to him, even for the briefest moment, even as a ghoul drenched in blood, holding his own head in his arms, pronouncing curses on Shigeru. "Nobuyoshi!" He willed himself to see what was not there. So many times before, against his will, had he seen. Surely once, just once, he could see as he wished. But he saw only trees and the winter sky. No visions, no delusions, no meeting with the dead. Had he heard the voice at all? "Lord Shigeru, you do me honor." Sahaku was astride the trail, ahead accompanied by one samurai. Distracted by thoughts of his son, Shigeru had almost ridden into him. Sahaku did not display any sign of the gunshot he was reported to have suffered. His armor was unblemished, his posture was erect, and his voice, when he spoke, was strong. "Imagine no such thing. I come to take your head, nothing more." Sahaku laughed. "You'll be disappointed. They are overvalued. Mine certainly has not done me much good. Has yours, Yoshi?" "No, Reverend Abbot, I regret it has not." Shigeru spurred his horse into a charge. A heartbeat later, Sahaku and Yoshi responded. At the instant before they met, Sahaku leaned forward against his horse's neck and cut upward both towards Shigeru and his mount. Yoshi struck downward. Shigeru, anticipating both moves, deflected Sahaku's blow and avoided Yoshi's, slicing halfway through the latter's thigh and severing his femoral artery. Yoshi fell as Shigeru wheeled his horse around. Sahaku, slowed by his broken knee, could not match Shigeru. By the time he turned, Shigeru was already charging from his left side. Sahaku twisted in his saddle and blocked Shigeru's downward katana cut, but with the shorter wakizashi now in his left hand, Shigeru sliced cleanly through Sahaku's right shoulder joint. Sahaku experienced each moment that followed with such completeness that there was no sense of sequence. Blood spewed from the ruined stump of his shoulder. Had he ever seen a brighter red? His hand still clenched his sword, only now sword, hand, and arm were at an unaccustomed distance from him, on the ground at the hooves of his horse. He floated weightlessly in the air, the earth above, the sky below. Shigeru's face appeared before him, blood-splattered, full of anguish. Sahaku felt a deep sympathy he could not express in words. Sunlight flashed from the blade arcing through the air. He recognized the elegant form, the metallurgical pattern at its edge, and the nearly white hue of its steel. There were only two swords like it in all the realm. The katana and wakizashi together called the Sparrow's talons. A headless body fell away beneath him. It was missing a right arm. It wore his armor. It was not important. Sahaku disappeared into the infinitely bright light of Amida Buddha's compassion. ... Shigeru held Sahaku's head up and looked at him face to face. If he had any thoughts about the recent frequency with which he had been killing friends and relatives, he did not have them long. Fire! 13 of the 40 musket balls that flew through the air toward him found their target. Though they knocked him down, none of them created an immediately fatal wound. Shigeru got to his feet. As he stood, his katana fell out of his paralyzed right hand. Bullets had shattered his forearm and elbow on that side. He ran towards the trees opposite those from which the volley had come. He had nearly reached them when 20 musketeers stepped out of concealment in front of him and fired their weapons at point-blank range. He fell a second time. When he tried to rise, not even a finger moved. He was not surprised to see Kawakami looking down at him. "Cut off his head," Kawakami said. "He's still alive, my lord." "Then wait. Bring them here. Show him." The adjutant held the sparrow's talons so Shigeru could see them. Please watch, Lord Shigeru. 2 men held him up. A third man with a heavy axe struck at both katana and wakizashi until they broke in half. Good, Kawakami said. Now cut off his head. Kawakami made sure his own triumphant face filled Shigeru's eyes. How satisfying that this was the last thing the great warrior would see in his wretched lifetime. But Shigeru's vision had already gone elsewhere. Father! Nobuyoshi called out as he ran towards Shigeru. There was no blood, no decapitation, no cursing. The boy laughed and pulled a small, colourful butterfly kite aloft behind him. Look what cousin Genji made for me. Nobuyoshi, Shigeru said and smiled. ... Poor Shigeru, the madman. At least he got to see his son. Kawakami had prepared Shigeru's head with a fastidiously correct etiquette. The eyes were closed, the face was clean with no expression of pain or suffering. The hair was immaculately neat, and sandalwood incense almost completely masked the smell of blood and incipient decay. Thank you, Lord Kawakami, Genji said. Your generosity surprises me. I thought you would intend to present this to your ancestors. Oh, I will do so, Lord Genji. Please do not concern yourself on that account. When you are dead, I will recover both this head and yours. May I inquire as to the location of the body? When I return to Cloud of Sparrows, a more complete cremation would be desirable. Kawakami laughed, though he did not feel like laughing. His guest had not reacted with the horror and fear Kawakami expected. If Genji had any hope of rescue, it must lie with his uncle. The sight of Shigeru's head should have broken him. He signalled to his adjutant, who closed the box and wrapped it once more in silk. Unfortunately, the body, as well as that of Abbot Sohaku, was in the meditation hall. You may think of the cremation as already having taken place. Thank you once again for your hospitality. Genji bowed and prepared to depart. Please don't rush off. There is yet another item on our agenda. Genji sat back. The small, constant aggravating smile was still on his lips, but not for long. Kawakami willed his anger to subside. He wanted no negative emotions to interfere with his perceptions of what would happen next. These were memories he would treasure and recall for years to come. Kawakami said, I understand you have been most fortunate in securing the affections of an incomparable beauty, Lady Meianaka no Heiko. Heiko. So it seems. Yes, so it seems, Kawakami said. How different seeming and the real so often are. What seems like love may be hate, or worse, an act designed to confuse and distract. What seems like beauty may be ugliness of such depth that it cannot be imagined. He paused, expecting a witty retort, but Genji said nothing. Sometimes what seems and what is are not the same, and yet both are real. Heiko, for example, seems to be a beautiful geisha, and she is. She is also a ninja. Again he paused. Again Genji said nothing. Do you doubt me? No, Lord Kawakami. I have no doubt you are telling the truth. You don't seem surprised. As you have pointed out, we are well advised not to place too much emphasis on what seems to be. Lord Genji, please do me the courtesy of pretending you believe me to possess a modicum of intelligence. Obviously you know of her dual character. For the sake of argument, let us assume so. Now Genji paused and looked at him with what Kawakami believed was heightened anxiety. There is more, of course. Of course. Since you know she is a ninja, then you must also know she is in my employ. I would come to that conclusion, yes. And I knew, of course, that you would uncover all these facts before very long. Kawakami permitted the satisfaction he felt to show on his face. Like all clever people, and you are very clever, Lord Genji, no one would deny you that. You tend to disregard the cleverness of others. You really think me such a fool that I would expect Heiko's secret to remain secret. I must admit, I formerly had such thoughts, Genji said. I see they were mistaken. More mistaken than you realize. You thought I sent Heiko into your bed so she could betray you, possibly even kill you at a moment I deemed propitious. Not unreasonable, since this is the assignment Heiko also thought she had. Perhaps the two of you have discussed this in some detail by now. Kawakami gave Genji an opportunity to respond, but he did not. How could I have such a plan? For Heiko to do such things, she would need to be treacherous and deceitful to a grotesque extent. No external semblance of beauty could conceal such ugliness from a man of your subtle understanding. On the contrary, my true purpose demanded an entirely different sort of woman, one possessed of great sensitivity, passion, sincerity, depth. Exactly Heiko, in other words. Like a doting father, I had only one wish for her, that she find true love. Kawakami paused again, savouring the pendant moment. The growing dismay on Genji's face intoxicated him. May I permit myself to hope that she has... ... We're going back to the past now. Before Kawakami ascended to the title of the Great Lord of Hino, which was then held by his uncle, he fancied himself slighted by Yorimasa, the son and heir of Kiyori, Great Lord of Akawaka. The occasion was unimportant. The injury, real or imagined, merely added heat to the already existing hatred established by Sekigahara. It further offended him to see such a drunken, opium-addicted wastrel esteemed for the visionary abilities that supposedly ran in his blood. Kawakami knew true vision was based on having information that others did not want known. Acquiring this required diligence, skill, and a natural ability carefully nurtured. Inherited magic had nothing to do with it. He contemplated for some time the retributive actions open to him. A duel was out of the question. So I'm just going to skip forward and see how much left. Long chapter. Oh, jeez. I might have finished this tomorrow. I'll read until... Okay, I'll read until Kawakami's finished and he's told Genji what he wants to tell him. Okay. A duel was out of the question. Even intoxicated, Yorimasa was deadlier with a sword than Kawakami was on his 10 best days combined. And if, against all probability, he somehow managed to prevail, he would then have to deal with Yorimasa's younger brother, Shigeru, whose reputation was already beginning to rival the legendary Musashi's. Defeating him left the realm of the improbable and entered that of the clearly impossible. Assassination was more reasonable. The Kawakami clan had, through a historical accident whose origins had grown vague over time, the allegiance of a small clan of ninjas. When Kawakami imagined Yorimasa's death in such a covert manner, he felt not the slightest joy. It wasn't important that everyone knew who was responsible, but Yorimasa had to know before he died, or where was the satisfaction? The answer came to him one day when he was accompanying Ryogi, the procurer, on a tour of villages in the outlying parts of Hino domain. Kawakami's interest in geishas had led him to secretly invest in several of the leading houses. His interest was not in sex, however, but information. Geishas knew things no one else did. Some who fancy themselves connoisseurs say manner is everything, Ryogi said. This is the accepted view of the old Kyoto school, of course. Ryogi laughed. It is the view of blind men. Appearance, my lord, is far more important. Behavior can be compelled. Appearance is either there or it is not. A woman cannot be forced to be beautiful. Kawakami nodded assent, though he did not agree because that is what required the least effort. He did not spend time with Ryogi to exchange words with him. The old procurer was crude, harsh, stupid, given to foul habits of every kind, and profoundly repulsive in almost every way imaginable, including personal hygiene. He had only one positive attribute: the astounding ability to see rare beauty in a woman when she was still a very young child. Because he was held in such low regard, Ryogi's discoveries never found their way to the best geisha houses, and were therefore never properly nurtured. The beauty that eventually blossomed was invariably wasted in some low-level brothel in the worst parts of the floating world. That was how Ryogi had come to his attention. Kawakami had, on several occasions, noticed the most extraordinarily beautiful faces staring out from behind the wooden bars of some of the very worst brothels in Edo. Upon inquiry, he discovered two things. First, the women, prematurely ruined by years of ill use, no matter how young, were invariably unsuitable for his purposes. Second, each and every one had been sold to the proprietors by one particular man. Kawakami was accompanying Ryogi on this procurement mission because he hoped to learn the skill himself. In this he had been unsuccessful. The three little girls selected in the villages they had visited were pretty enough, but he could discern no common feature or quality hinting at the beauty Ryogi assured him was there. "Thank you for this lesson," Kawakami said. He gestured to his assistant to give Ryogi his payment. Ryogi took the gold coins with an obsequious bow. Isn't there another village in the last valley? I see smoke. I think I smell something too. Etta, Kawakami said. Etta were the hereditary outcasts who did the foulest necessary work. They were disdained even by the most lowly peasants. Butchers? Ryogi said, sniffing the air like a mongrel. Leather workers, Kawakami said. He turned his horse in the other direction, back toward the castle, and away from the disgusting odour the shifting wind now strongly blew his way. I'll take a look, Ryogi said. You never know where beauty may be found, eh? Kawakami was about to bid him good day when he thought better of it. To know what others did not sometimes required going where others declined to go. Then I will accompany you a while longer. My lord, his senior bodyguard said, do not risk pollution by entering an outcast village. There is no reason. How can there be beauty among those who skin and work the hides of slaughtered beasts? And if there is, another bodyguard said, what man can overcome his disgust enough to bother with it? Nevertheless, we will continue with our guide. As soon as he saw the child, about 3 years of age, Kawakami knew. He didn't need Ryogi to tell him, though Ryogi did. She will devastate many men, Ryogi said, before she is worn down by them. Who are her parents, her siblings? The gathered outcasts continued to press their heads to the ground. No one spoke. They were all too stunned and frightened by Kawakami's presence. Never before had a samurai, much less the heir himself, set foot in their village. Kawakami said, Answer. Lord. A man and woman shuffled forward on their hands and knees without lifting their eyes from the ground. 2 boys and a girl, between 5 and 8 years old, followed their lead. You, woman, look up. She did so with great hesitancy, lifting her head but not her eyes. Her face was remarkably pretty, though she was past the first blush of youth, and her form not entirely inelegant. If Kawakami had not known, he would not have guessed her cursed lineage. Not bad, Ryogi said, but the mother is nothing compared to what the daughter will be. At Kawakami's signal, one of the bodyguards dropped some coins on the ground. The little girl was put on one of the 3 broken nags Ryogi had strung along behind his horse. The party departed. At Hino Castle, Kawakami paid Ryogi a bonus for his excellent instruction. The procurer left for Edo the next morning, along with his 4 new pieces of human merchandise. That night, he stopped at a way station. When he did not come to breakfast, the innkeeper went to check. He found Ryogi's neck slit from ear to ear. 3 of the little girls had exited this life in the same way. The 4th was missing. As he had been instructed, Kuma the bear took the Etta child to his own village, the home of the small clan of ninjas to which he belonged. What's your name? Mitsuko. I'm your Uncle Kuma. You're not. I don't have an Uncle Kuma. Yes, you do. You just didn't know until now. Where's my mummy? I'm so sorry, Mitsuko. There's been a terrible accident. Your mummy, daddy and brothers and sister have all gone on to the Pure Land. No. ... back to the present. Kuma you have already met, Kawakami said, though the introduction was not formal. Your outsider friend Stark shot him right after the bombardment of Edo. Perhaps you remember? I do. Needless to say, Mitsuko, you know her by her professional name, of course, is not an orphan. He signalled to his adjutant, who brought sake for him. This was an occasion that called for something more festive than tea, even if he had to drink it alone. Both her parents are still alive. Both her parents are still alive, as are her two brothers and older sister. There is a remarkable family resemblance among them all, particularly between Mitsuko and her mother and sister. It is quite pronounced now that she is an adult. Naturally, the inescapable hardships of Eta life have taken their toll. But not on Mitsuko. Are you sure you will not partake of some sake, Lord Genji? It is genuine, of the best quality. He was sure Genji did not miss his emphasis on the word genuine. No, thank you. Have you no words of wit or wisdom to offer, my lord? I do not. A pity you failed to foresee this. Not really, Genji said. No harm has been done. My feelings are unaffected by your slander. Your feelings? Kawakami laughed. They should be the least of your concerns. A great lord sharing his bed with an Eta, the polluted offspring of stinking, offal-eating, hide-stretching degenerates. I am sorry you will not survive to experience the furor this news will excite when it becomes public. It will put an unfortunate and indelible stain on the reputation of your clan, even as it is extinguished. The only thing better, or worse, depending on your viewpoint, is if you and Heiko had children, or even married. Regrettably, the pressure exerted by outsiders has forced a compression of events. Things do tend to speed up when they are around, don't they? No one will believe such a ridiculous allegation, Genji said. Do you think not? Kawakami said. Picture mother and sister standing by her side. Will anyone have the slightest doubt then? That will not happen, Genji said. No, do you foresee that? Genji smiled. It was a slight smile and lacked the assurance of his former smile, but it still irritated Kawakami. I have foreseen what is necessary, and heard the same. With your permission, I will impose upon you no longer. Kawakami's adjutant and bodyguards looked at him, waiting for the signal to cut Genji down. But he did not give it. Let him return to Heiko. Let him look at her now and feel what he must inevitably feel. Such agony that Kawakami could imagine was worth more than Genji's immediate death. Patience had its own pleasures. ... And I will leave the story there for tonight. Oh, shit. Not that it matters to us, but in those days, Eta were absolutely forbidden from interacting with anyone else. Because the Japanese in those days had a very big thing about spiritual pollution, and Eta were the people who dealt with death, so they were considered spiritually polluted. And that is why Kawakami chose an Eta child, trained her as a geisha and ninja, and put her in Genji's bed, basically. that is Kawakami's way of destroying Genji. And that was the big reveal. So we will find out what Genji's response is as he leaves Kawakami's camp and heads back to his group is probably tomorrow, because I did not take a sleep before stream and a no nap before stream, so I'm a bit eepy. My voice is okay, but I don't want to push it. And 2 hours is a good time to read. I disabled raids earlier. And I read a little bit longer than I wanted to, but I wanted to finish that bit. I thought it was good to end on that note. Bit of a cliffhanger. The reveal dropped, and then that's it. Who is on? Who is streaming? Pinapy's on. Pinapy's got a... I like Pinapy's colours. I think it's the colours. Every time I see like Pinapy's like still from the stream in the who's on, I'm like, colours. Who should I raid? Should I raid Ari? Should I raid Han? Han is on. Should I raid Ivy, maybe? Raid Air. Air raid. No. Raid Ari. Okay, yeah. I'm probably gonna look. Let's be real. I'm gonna raid Ari. Okie dokie. I am going to give a shout out to Han though.
Glory to you and your house.
Glory to you, Han. Han is... I don't know, I like their vibe. I like Han's just... I think Han reminds me of someone I used to know. Kind of cool. I'm not raiding you, Han. Relax. Relax. And damn it, I'm talking about you. I'm not supposed to be here. No, I'm raiding Ari. Damn it, now I can't talk about you. Han is cool bean. I'm just going to say that. Okay. Anyway. Yeah, get shouted out, nerd. No, don't leave. No, don't leave me. Don't leave me. Okay. Yeah, the way Han talks is sometimes like what my brain sounds like. just like random. Alright, so I'm raiding Ari. Raid. No, that's wrong. That's my A key is being weird. It's like the A key on my keyboard is sometimes missing and sometimes double typing. I hope it's not because this is a Temu keyboard. I love this keyboard. Look at it, it's so pretty. And it types really nicely. And I'm just like, I knew there was a catch. It is so pretty. It's my first white keyboard. I'm just like, white keyboard, do I dare? But it's supposed to be like this fancy plastic that doesn't get dirty as easy. And you know what? It doesn't. I also replaced some of the keys. Like I bought like glowy keys, and I replaced all of them, but then I can't see it in the daytime. So I replaced some of the keys with glowy with like the colored keys, so I can see the keys like I replaced the number 3 and the number 8, so I know where the 3 and the 8 are with my fingies, so I know where the rest of the numbers are in relation to those. So yeah. Anyway, I'm going to copy the raid command. The first one's for anyone, the second one is for subscribers. And I'm going to raid Aria la la la. Okay, it worked that time. Please join me for the raid. It's always nice when a few people join me for the raid. That's good. 8 is good. We can deal with 8. Please join me for my friend Ari. She has new hair. Please compliment her hair. I command you to compliment her hair. No. please compliment her hair. It's freshly greened and it is pretty. Pretty hair. Last tea. That is very cold tea. Okay, I'm going to get some more. I'm going to raid Ari, say hi and chat a bit, and then go and get some tea. Thank you for being here, everyone. I'll be back probably tomorrow, unless this throat thing develops. We will see. But I want to continue the story. It's on a cliffhanger. Get some fresh tea? Yes, I will. I will use this tea as well, because I like the taste. I think it's because I'm pouring the tea into the milk. Anyway. Kitty, thank you for being here, lovely. Thank you, everyone. See you at Ari's. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye. 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 Bye-bye.